Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols Plus, a PlayStation podcast supplement. My name is Colin Moriarty. Today I'm joined by a guest I'm really excited to speak to. I've been wanting to speak to him for a long time. You've probably not heard of him, but I've heard of him because I've been in his Instagram feed. I've been following him on Twitter and talking to him behind the scenes a little bit here and there. His name is William or Bill or Billy Holbert, depending, as we were saying earlier before we started recording, who you are and what era you're coming from. But Mr. Holbert, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to have you on the show. Oh,
it's my absolute pleasure. It's an honor.
Okay, so I'm going to say something at the very top because you expressed this to me. Mr. Holbert had a dental snafu.
Yes.
He's not really a deep water Appalachian hick. So
yeah, no tooth. Yeah.
He lost a tooth last week. He wanted,
yes. They're doing an implant. They're doing an implant, but it takes 3 months for the screw to bond with the bone. So here I am.
It's funny. My stepdad, my mom's husband, just had the same situations and was constantly explaining things to everyone. But I asked you if you wanted a delay, and you said no. You're not a man of vanity. You're a man of action, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
Now people might be wondering why I'm having you on the show today, and the title should have given it away in the description. But William, I've known about you, I think, since I was at Kind of Funny.
Yes.
And you're a retired man who plays video games. You play hardcore video games. And what's interesting is that I had originally approached you because I had thought that the story was that you found games later in life, and I had wanted to talk to you about that. But that wasn't it at all. When you and I started to talk, what I had learned was that you had been playing games since the beginning. And I was like, well, that's a whole nother story. And it's urgent that we talk to you because I don't want to be dramatic about it. Like I'm a war correspondent on Normandy or something like that. But it's important, I think, to get stories out of people that were there at embryonic states in industry's time and get the stories from them and the experiences because it's fascinating. Yeah. And so I wrote a whole litany of things that I wanted to ask you, which I don't usually do for my interviews because I like to kind of just take them as they come. But let me start by asking you who you are. Where do you come from? What do you do or what did you do? And then we'll get into your gaming history.
Well, I'm Bill Holbert. I'm San Antonio, Texas. I have retired after a 30-year career at San Antonio Police Department. It was a great career now that I think back on it, especially nowadays, the way things have been going with police. But I really, really enjoyed my career. And it's a lot of it is connected to these video games or vice versa in my story. We've been in San Antonio all our lives. Me and my wife, we've been married 52 years. I have a daughter, 2 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson.
It's amazing. Yeah, congratulations on all that, by the way. That's amazing. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Appreciate that for serving the community. I appreciate that as well, especially because, like you said, policing is so charged right now.
Yes, it's awful. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so down there in San Antonio, happily married, normal life, cop, right? House, daughter, grandkids. How did you start and when did you start playing video games? Because it was a long time ago. Talk to me about this.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was walking a foot patrol beat downtown, and one of my business people, I was down there for 18 years of my career, so I knew all the business people down there. But one of my business people was Tito Tawil, who owned Tawil's Electronics, and he came up in 1972 with a Pong console, and I was wandering the beat, and as was my activity, I'd go in and check on my individual businesses. And he said, "Hey, Bill, I want to show you this." And so I bought it on the spot. And I've been hooked ever since, with as the history goes on, Atari 2600, the Space Invader arcade games started showing up in the restaurants on my beat. Then they opened up an arcade, full arcade with, Battlezone and all those games. And I'd take my coffee break and go in there and play video games. I'm lucky somebody didn't sneak up behind me. But but it was really so much fun. So much fun. Yeah.
So yeah, 1972. It's amazing because
Yes.
that really is, as the audience knows, I think, because we talk about it sometimes. That is the beginning.
Yeah.
I think the microprocessor comes out the year before, so a lot of these things weren't even possible until then.
Mm-hmm.
And mainframe computers, obviously, oscilloscope games and all of that existed. But it's so amazing that you were there at the very beginning. So I have to ask you: you were married at this time. And I feel like this is something I've wanted to ask you as it tethers through. What did your wife think about this in the very beginning? As you bring this thing home, this is a new device. No one's ever seen anything like this before. Some people claim that they lose their spouses to games. I wonder what your wife's relationship to them was.
I was prone to electronics and things because my dad was did top secret antenna work during World War II, avid ham radio. I didn't do ham radio. But the electronics part of it was in my blood. So I was always bringing home some new gadget, or something. But that's awesome. Was on a whole different level,
So
building models as an adult, stuff like that, which I still do,
So you were like, it's so fascinating because and I mean this with all due respect, you're like the proto nerd. You're like one of the original nerd, because like before it was cool.
What is it? The high intelligence rate, I didn't have that.
Well,
the college perfect and all that.
But isn't it interesting? Like we talk about on the show how, and better than anyone, like how I think the younger generations, because I even know this, and I'm a millennial, that being a nerd wasn't always cool. Being into these things wasn't always cool. It was like, people with train sets in their basements and playing D&D in the 70s and doing all that kind of stuff that were kind of the origins of this. Were you into hobbyist computers and computer kits in the 70s?
Not then. The computers came a little bit later for me with the whole Atari 800 series of PCs. That's when I started with PCs. I think that was the early 80s. I tried to do some research, but if I get my dates mixed up, it's been a lot of years,
Oh no, I totally understand. I think about that. I think about that a lot, by the way, about how I just don't even remember exact times anymore. It's just that happened around this time.
What an incredible time though, because I went from the 800 to the 800 XL to the ST series, and my best friend at the time owned a used computer store. His name was Ray Ward. He was an intelligence analyst for the Air Force and retired from the Air Force, and as a relatively young man, and him and his wife opened a almost new computers store, and we'd go there and haggle over different STs and different brands of Atari computers and used games, and all that stuff was going on even back then. We had those little 8-bit modems that made that horrible sound. I don't know if you remember those. And
I had my first modem was a 14.4, which I think is pretty fast by the ones you're talking about.
But we'd sit there, and he had a place in the back. We called it the Pirates Cove. So I guess I'm a criminal. But we would download these games, but it would take an hour, 2 hours to download them. So we'd be telling each other stories and crap the whole time. It was just a grand time. He's gone home to be with the Lord now. I miss him greatly. He was my best friend.
So you had mentioned in your experience with the 70s that you had brought up Pong, bringing that home, but then you had brought up a lot of arcade machines.
Yes.
What were some of those early arcade games that you liked? You had brought up Space Invaders. I mean, what were you drawn to?
Forgive me, but there was, of course, Space Invaders. That's the first one I saw when it came into this restaurant that was also on my beat. I said, wow, look at this, And then Defender, Battlezone, games like that. Oh, come on, what's that thing where it fires the missile command?
Missile command, yeah.
But trying to remember, Zaxxon. And then later when I got a ColecoVision, it had a crude version of Zaxxon, which I still enjoyed it thoroughly, But
I was gonna ask you about that. So you had skipped to kind of the Atari series, but you had some of those early consoles as well, right? The Intellivision.
I had the 2600, but then I moved to the 800 computers, and they had the same games.
Right.
A little bit better, not much, but a little bit better. But it was just the fun of the computer and figuring out how to control it more, Never did learn how to code or anything like that. We tried. They used to give monthly, I'd get these magazines with these huge lists of code. And if you did it right, you got a game. But I never did get it right, damn things, hours and hours, and then you get a line wrong, and there it go.
I was just because I'm kind of ignorant on those early computers until more recently. I've been watching videos, and they've been talking a lot about that, and I didn't realize that you'd have to go through these lines code, and it would be like line 76. You could run things that would tell you where the game was broken, but you had to be like very precise, and it's amazing that what like the lengths people did, and it's amazing that you were attracted to those even though you weren't really programming on them.
Oh no, and I was a failure with that. But they had other things too, and
right.
God, I can remember loading programs from a cassette tape. It was just incredible. You had to be patient. But we still had so much fun with those machines. We really did. And the ST series was years ahead of everybody else. It had color graphics and a mouse built in. And so when I finally moved to PCs after the crash, it was a culture shock because I had learned DOS 5. But then fortunately Windows came along, and then Windows 3, Windows 3.11. And I remember one of the funnest nights of my life is when they released Windows 95. I went to Egghead Software for a midnight launch. And we all in line, just like we do today for the Skyrim Collector's Edition. We're all out there in line waiting for Windows 95. And then it took me all night to get it to run on I had an IBM Aptiva at the time. I worked on that thing, had to make some long distance calls, and finally got it about 4 a.m. I got that thing to work, and never forgot that, And, that helped me in my job later because nobody else knew how to use computers. And so I knew at least how to, use the software, spreadsheets, Word, things like that. And it was invaluable. It got me good jobs on the police department later in my career,
That's a really interesting point. I want to talk about that for a minute. So this just happened. It's actually really funny. So your beat as a cop brought you into these various places that introduced you to these technologies that you fell in love with. And then you were able to parlay those later on when those technologies became relevant in the mainstream. So
I worked in homicide, sex crimes, doing investigations. Needless to say, computer skills were priceless when it came to that. Taking quick statements, getting people summaries of cases. Of course, you had to do the legwork too. You get out and collect the evidence and talk. You have to talk to people. That's the only way you can make a case. You got to talk to people. And it was fascinating work. I loved it. Although I have to say, Foot Patrol, that 18 years, that's what stands out in my memory to this day, of my career. But investigations was fun. I did a lot of different jobs,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, then when I made sergeant, I went to internal affairs, which I didn't like very much, but the basics were the same. An investigation is an investigation. Okay, you collect statements, blah blah blah, and they put me to work creating computer forms, so nobody had to pull out papers. They'd had the forms in their computer. I could, believe it or not, you could do that with Word and with what was the spreadsheet back then?
Excel.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Forgive me for my memory. But so I would create the forms so all the other investigators could just use the computer to just enter their information. And that's the skill that followed me through my career all the way to the end,
I love that. I love that game. I love the full circle of you finding games, finding technology, and then it helping you in your career. Were there any judgments amongst your peers, like your cop friends, that you played games and stuff at this time, or were they into it too?
I don't. If they felt that way, they never said anything to me. I had a lot of good friends. I had some that I'm sure thought I was a complete raving nut, but that's okay. I'm having a ball. They can think I'm a nut. I could care less. Didn't affect my job. It didn't affect the great assignments that I got because of the effort to learn. And so if somebody felt that way about me, I never, who cares? Right.
Amen. No, totally.
No, I had good respect from my peers, though. In all fairness, I thought I had a good career. I mean, if you went back and look at my record, I think I had a good career. I'm proud of it.
I'm sure you did. how have you found balance, and were you finding balance at that time? Or were you always able to kind of find the right balance between life and pleasure and, like leisure with games and work? Or did games ever and computers and all of that ever become too much of a hobby for you, too much of an obsession? This is something that I think happens to many people when they play. I'm wondering if that was ever a
No,
problem for you.
we had me and my wife, we have our interests we do together, and then we have interests that she has and interests that I have, and and some of them she likes to sit in her room and read books, and I'd sit in my room doing the computer or playing Skyrim or whatever, you know what I mean? And we balance out just fine. It's actually a good thing,
I think
because
so too.
we have our time together, and then we have our time with our own activities, and we're content. That's the key. People always ask me the secret of happiness. Here, let's get deep and philosophical.
Please. Oh, please.
But it's not happiness. Happiness is the wrong word. The word is contentment. Because you can wake up with a migraine headache tomorrow, and you're not going to be happy. But if you have contentment, that's with you all your life.
I like that. That is deep.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll quit doing that. I'll quit doing that. Yeah.
No, please don't. I love that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, you listen to the show, you know how off on tangents we go.
Yeah.
So you had brought up Windows 95. I want to touch on that in a minute because I remember that moment too. But were you in this post-crash era when you had found, gone to PC and all of that, were you also playing on console, NES, Genesis, SNES?
Yeah, the NES came out, and I loved it. I'm trying to remember. Was that the one with Duck Hunt with that damn dog? Okay,
yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
yeah. I enjoyed that, and I think I skipped a couple of generations on Nintendo because I got sidetracked with the PlayStation and the Xbox. And geez, it's hard to pick out. My funnest memories, I must tell you, would be Ocarina of Time on the N64. I had that one, and then again on the GameCube, and the Xbox 360 Oblivion. I went absolutely nuts over that game. I just 3 months ago did a complete playthrough again because my Series X makes all my old games like they're new again. It's just amazing, 60 frames a minute, and they make all the color beautiful again. So all my games are like they're new to me, So
it's awesome.
I'm enjoying that. And then my PlayStation, of course, and their exclusives. I like both consoles equally. Okay. Xbox, Series X for my old games primarily, and the third-party games, and PlayStation for the exclusives, Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West when it comes. Oh, come on, some of the new ones that are coming out, that those are my kind of games. I'm not good with the Dark Soul games. I admit it to you firsthand, and I'm absolutely horrible in multiplayer. Horrible. I tried Titanfall, and you remember all those videos they do of the kill of the week? I was the one they were killing, you know what I mean? They would get me. I finally gave up on that. Destiny 1, I enjoyed, made some good friends, but then as that game evolved, it got to where I didn't like it anymore.
Fair enough. What's attractive to you about role-playing games? It seems like you seem to like Western role-playing games amongst other things.
Yes.
Was that attractive to you going back to Ultima and all those kinds of games?
Yes, I played Ultima. Yes, and the Escape to Another World. Although to be specific, like I don't like the Call of Duties. I don't like what's that one where you're on the downtown streets all the time? I'm drawing blanks.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
God, I'm sorry, but
no, it's all good. I
worked the streets for real for 18 years on foot. I don't want to play a game about that. I want a fantasy factor or science fiction factor or both in the game, such as Mass Effect, Skyrim, of course, Oblivion, like I said, BioShock, things like that. God, I must have played Oblivion every day for over a year. And then the only thing got me out of it was BioShock. And that was a surprise. I don't know if it was for you, but it seemed like BioShock just came out of nowhere.
No, I feel the same. It's one of my favorite games, and I didn't have any expectations. Yeah.
And I like the Stealth series, Dishonored, greatly. Things like that, where I can take my time and figure out how to do it without a lot of pressure. Have enjoyed the new Guardians of the Galaxy. I've enjoyed that one. Yeah, had fun with that one. Yeah.
I just bought that on Black Friday because it was discounted. I have to get to it. So yeah, I understand you want that escape. Do you seek that escape in your other hobbies too? Are you like a reader or a fan of like movies or television shows that give you the same sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, movies. I'm not much of a reader anymore. I don't know. I would rather play my video game. My wife reads for both of us. Keeps me informed. Just give me the summary, right?
I don't blame you. You have to kind of choose your poison. There's not enough time for everything.
Right,
there's not enough time.
Of which I'm running out of. But what are you going to do? What is it? 70. That's me.
Oh my God, you have many a year left with the controller in your hand. So
I hope so. Yeah.
I feel it. So let me talk about this. I'm curious about the evolution of fandom, like the evolution of being a fan of games. Have you noticed or have you observed that gaming, like the culture around gaming, has become more toxic, or do you feel like it's always been this way?
No, I don't think it has. I think the toxicity has come from the intense multiplayer games where they and the lack of respect for each other, where they'll teabag each other and get in each other's face. They do it in sports. They do it everywhere now. That's just the way society has gone, and I'd rather just avoid that. I don't want to partake in that kind of stuff. I like to be nice to people. Well, if they beat me, they beat me. Great, But that's just the way it is nowadays, and we either engage in it or take a different path. Me, I'm going to do my RPGs, and I don't want strangers in my game.
I'm the complete same way. By the way,
Yeah.
just I don't consider myself a great gamer, and I don't want gaming with people looking over my back. So I'm totally simpatico.
Well, I'm terrible in multiplayer. I'm awful. I admit it freely and wholly. I will set the game. If I can't handle it, I'll set it on easy. I'm not proud. I don't care. I just want to finish my story. You know what I mean? Get through.
Right, you're in it for the story.
Enjoy myself.
You had mentioned earlier the old DOS style magazines or OS style magazines where you'd get the script for games. And were you a reader of magazines and newsletters back in the day?
Oh, they had.
Talk to me about that. Yeah.
I remember they had every month. I had my beat again. I had a magazine store on my beat right there on Houston Street. That's where I worked, and I must have gotten 6 or 7, maybe 8 of these slick color pictures magazines, real high quality, on all the different consoles. And I remember just like they do today, hyping all these games that never did come out, but they were always showing these, advanced graphics and stuff, which you knew perfectly well my ColecoVision isn't going to be able to do that,
Right.
But it made it so much fun to read that stuff and hope, but a lot of it never did come to fruition, but it came later, that kind of good stuff, so that's okay. God, I used to love those magazines though. Don't remember their titles, huh?
I was going to mention I was going to ask, you had mentioned earlier your early baud modems. Were you on Usenet and things like that in the 80s?
I don't remember. I remember this. All I can remember is the sounds, if you know the truth. But we had bulletin boards, of course, and And I would meet up with Ray at the store, and he had his modem there, and we would copy it onto a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk, Then with the ST, it was the little 3.5 inch, and that was it. I don't even know when we started finally getting a hard drive. I remember my first computer with a hard drive only had 40 megabytes. Can you imagine? And we got by. Nowadays with all these terabytes and crap, But it was still fun. We had a ball with that. So I remember playing Wing Commander on a Motorola PC with no sound card, no graphics card. It was crude. You had to, you did it with the keyboard, and I still had a ball with that stupid game. I still remember it. It was a first-person space shooter with these lion-looking guys were the bad guys. I still vividly remember that. But just little pings and sounds. That was it. But boy, it was fun.
I think that's part of what was fun about gaming were the limitations, like kind of having to use your imagination or deal with things.
Yes.
We don't have to so much do that anymore, for better or for worse. But I wanted to, you had brought up Windows 95, which is so funny because I'm 37. So I was, 10 or 11 when Windows 95 came out. And I remember that being a phenomenon. I remember that being a revolution. People were, like you said, waiting outside. It was this big revolution from 3.1. And like you had mentioned, 3.11, which was my first operating system on my 486. To Windows 95. At this time, were you playing more on PC or were you playing more on console? And did you feel a specific draw to one or the other? Because I think at this time, they started kind of going in separate directions.
I found myself gravitating towards, of course, PlayStation, Xbox, because the consoles are so much simpler. The PC games back then and even today, you end up having to deal with problems and to get the darn thing to run, and I don't want to deal with that anymore. I remember recently when I bought a gaming PC and I was trying to get a Fallout 3 to run on it. And I had to go in the any files and everything else and make different entries to try to get the stupid game to even run. And it never did run. So I even back then I was tending, because the PlayStation and the Xbox were revolutionary at the time as to the quality. I mean, look at Halo. People are still playing it today, and the PlayStation games, especially the PlayStation 2 games, were God of War. I must have played that 10 times through. Games like that. Well, that I was very satisfied with that level of quality, and I'm still am.
In your retirement, how have games served you? I wonder if they've served you well, because I feel like they must be, and I've been trying to get some older people in my life that have retired and are kind of looking for hobbies, to, like my uncle, for instance, to try to give them a chance, but they just won't. Like, it's just,
No.
I think you're either built for it or you're not. They'll just never see video games for what I feel like they are. How have they kept you entertained or kept you sharp or whatever in
both.
the time after
I really
working?
believe the video games keep my mind, at least to a point, sharp, where I can function and think and make decisions. And that's what you have to do in the video game. You have to look at a problem and come up with a solution. And many video games give you many ways to solve the problem, which is also healthy, and plus the escape. It's no more different than somebody sitting there reading a novel, only you get to control everything more closely. At least you're not controlling the character in the novel, but you are in the video game, even if it's an illusion. And the game's still going to end the same way no matter what you do. You feel like you're controlling it anyhow. And it's just a joy. It's fun. You're never too old to quit having fun, and that's what video games are for me. And then we love movies. Like I said, we do things together. I'm close with my family. My grandson and he's at 22 now. I don't know where he came from, because he's 6'2" and I'm like 5'5". I don't know what the hell happened, but he's my best friend in life today. And we game together all the time and get out together and go look at games, look at things connected to games. I mean, all the time. And he's like me, a super great Witcher fan. And Witcher 3 is probably my favorite game in the whole world. And but that changes with my mood. Okay, be honest with you. On a given day, I might tell you a different game is my favorite game.
I understand. Totally.
But I'm about due for another playthrough of Witcher 3, though. I'm kind of in. I want to do another playthrough of Cyberpunk 2. I really enjoyed that in spite of all the problems. The Series X played it perfectly. I never had an issue with it.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet because I've been waiting for the new ones. You're going to be right in time, though. I just read right before we went into this conversation that Q1 2022 will be Cyberpunk on Xbox Series X, and then Witcher 3 will be on Xbox Series X with the improvements and all of that in
Okay.
Q2. So right around the corner for you if you want to
be looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, jump back into those. This is awesome to hear about your grandson. I was going to ask you, was that the first time you were able to connect within your family with video games with someone, or did you have some sort of connection with your daughter as well with games? You said you had a daughter, right?
Yeah. She played. There used to be this crude boxing game, I think, in the Atari 2600. I can't remember for sure. And it was a top down thing where it was a boxing match, where you do. She must have been 6, 7, and she would just absolutely destroy me in that game. And of course, she loved that, And I mean, I never let her win. I tried to win, but she's been brought up with electronics and games, and her computer expertise is also. I like to think I helped her at least get started. She's way ahead of what I ever was. Has helped her in her career with the worldwide Arnold Palmer Golf Club. I think that's the correct title of the business. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But all her expertise in that area has really advanced her well in her career as well. So electronics, whether you call them games, PCs, whatever aspect you want to look at, has served all of us in our family, my daughter, my grandchildren, very well. And Alex is, like I said, he's my best friend. We talk all the time. And I find it a great honor that my 22-year-old grandson still loves to hang out with me, and we laugh, we have more fun, I have my mask I wear has the Witcher wolf on it, and we go out together, and his does too, and he wears the pendant all the time, and we're like kids, you know what I mean, and having a good time all the time, No, games have served, and electronics have served me well in my life.
This is awesome. It's heartening to hear. And you're like a cool grandfather. Why wouldn't he want to be around you? I lost my grandfather when I was young, so I never got a chance to explore. Oh, it's okay. Thank you. I never got a chance to explore what that would have been like, to kind of share that. And I think it's cool. I feel like that's awesome. And certainly your love of electronics and PCs and all of that obviously served your family very well and set the stage there for everything that they were going to do. These days, talk to me a little bit about what you're playing and what you're keeping into. I'm kind of curious what your routine is. Like, do you have a routine with gaming, or do you just come to it when you want to?
The anniversary edition of Skyrim hit, so I thought, okay. Right. And they gave me all that new crap, come on the Creation Club. I got every single one of those things. I'd never even bothered to mess with them much. I had a few mods, and I have been having a ball with that, and so I did a complete playthrough of Skyrim, which I'm not even done with yet, and waiting for, what is it, the first quarter next year when Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West come out. Those games are really on my radar. And then, of course, Halo. I'm looking forward to Halo. I want to play that, the campaign. And really looking forward to that. It's supposed to be really good. But lately, it's been Skyrim. And I'm kind of stuck on the last battle of Guardians of the Galaxy. I got kind of bogged down in it. I just need to go back and finish it,
Right on.
Which I've really enjoyed thoroughly. I may go back and do another BioShock playthrough, or like I told you, the Series X has made all my old games like they're new again. It amazes me what they've accomplished, and I love the PlayStation. I don't want to make anybody mad. I love the PlayStation 5 too.
No one's gonna get mad.
And right. I hold them equal but different. That's the way I regard them. And I'm having a ball with both of them. I'm so glad we live in an era that has two such advanced consoles. And then I do my Switch once in a while, but honestly, my old eyes are not good with handhelds. Sure. I got to have a relatively large screen,
No, I understand. That makes sense. What you had brought up some games that you were looking forward to. are you going to continue to look towards role playing games and shooters? Is that kind of the space in which you want to dwell?
Yeah,
Or do you get
as long as it has the science fiction and the fantasy factor
right?
thrown in, the if it's just modern day out on the rough streets of Chicago or some nonsense, like I lived through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need to play a game about that. And they act so ugly to each other. You know, what are you going to do? I don't.
Fair enough.
I like my fantasy games. That's where I go. And Dragon Age, I love Dragon Age. I know I heard you guys made some comments the other day at Origins, and
yeah, people are mad at me about that.
They were awful games, but I still had fun with them. You know, and I liked Inquisition. The Series X really turned that game around, in my opinion. Okay, it is gorgeous now. We're on my Xbox One. I never could get it to look right, you know. But boy, on my Series X, it's just smooth as glass, and it's a fun game to play. Just recently did a playthrough of that, you know. So it depends. And then like I said, new games too, and I. Just keep it. There's always something. Goodness gracious!
I mean,
never run out. You know, Game Pass. You never run out of games. My gosh, you know, I can't keep up with it all. You know.
Yeah. How do you feel about Game Pass as a person who's been gaming for so long? You really like it?
Adore it. For me, you know, much money that saved me. You know, because there's a lot of games I bought, you know, at $60, $70 a pop that I ended up not liking. You know, and then you can trade them in later and all that. I realize that, but. Well, not digitally. You're kind of hard to trade in a digital game. Yeah,
right. That's the trade-off. I guess.
Digitally now, you know, I have a few discs left, but not like I used to. I like the digital games, but
me too.
Game Pass gives me a chance to experiment with a lot of games that I'd probably never play, you know, on my own. You know, not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was gonna ask if you because you had brought up that you still have a few discs hanging around. Have you kept everything that you've bought over the years, or have you traded it in and kind of gotten rid of it? I've
traded it in and not much into retro games. I mean, I figured I was there. I've done that. I don't want to do it now. You know what I'm saying? Sure. And a lot of people love that stuff, you know, where I see them all the time. They're new games, but they're the side scrollers with the kind of crude graphics that the kind of games we used to play years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just, as soon as I see side scroller, I kind of go into a daze, you know. It's not
that breaks my heart. You can't win them all. You can't win them all. That's fine.
I'm not good with side scrollers.
It seems you have a preference clearly based on the games you're talking about into 3D worlds, which is fine. I don't think that's unusual at all. And I don't know. It's so interesting. Have you sought out, because I guess I found you online, and I don't remember how we started talking really.
I started following you way back at IGN, Colin, way back, you know, and I'd make little comments on Twitter. And can you hear that sound?
It's okay.
That's my Vector robot, and sometimes he thinks I'm talking to him, and now he's answering a question that I never asked him. So my robot is insane. Okay, so I can't.
Sounds like the origins of a video game. It's okay.
He's wonderful. I just love him. But now he made me lose my whole train of thought. Oh well.
Have you sought out community online, like for games? Like, is that important to you? I know you like to play them by yourself, but is it
I have one in particular, very, very close friend that I made playing Destiny. His name's Dave Schaefer. We actually met each other downtown here in San Antonio. He was here on a conference, and him and his wife we became, you know, real human, actual friends, give each other Christmas presents and stuff, you know.
Awesome.
And I just love that guy. But no, not a huge community. I'm pretty much content, you know, in retirement. I'm homebound a lot of times. I'm not that particularly sick, but my wife has some illnesses that I have to be here for. And so I'm homebound a lot, and so it's priceless to have the games and the community that I do have. But I met you on Twitter. That's what I was trying to talk about years ago, man, way back at the old Up at Noon show with Greg and all that group of folks back then, which was IGN was having so much fun then, and I still am a very close. Love Max and Brian and those guys over at IGN. I just got hooked on them, And I don't know what year that was. It had to have been 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago, about probably.
Yeah,
IGN,
8 or 10 years
and
then I remember the break off when you guys went to Kind of Funny, and then the other stuff that happened, which I won't insult you by even bringing it up. And
okay.
but I'm gonna say I'm on your side 100%. But and I'll probably hear about that. Do you remember the incident? Right. What a stupid thing to ask you. I'm so sorry, Colin.
No, oh my God. Don't even worry about it. No, I think that's why I was so attracted to you online, was because you just seemed like you have this. That's why I wanted to ask you. You have this like real positivity about you that I really love. Like, that's why I liked following you on Instagram. And that's what it's lame to say, but it's wholesome. And I feel like we need more people that are just, I think there are a lot of people like you and like me in the industry. I just don't think they really make themselves known. And I think that by just being normal and decent, I think it makes the situation better for everyone. So I think that's why I started following you. Yeah.
The 24-hour rule for me, if somebody says something that I think is awful, and as of which there is an abundance of in Twitter and places like that, sure. I have made a point to never react in anger. And I may even write a tweet, but then I always do the 24-hour rule. I wait a full day, and then I look at that and I say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to post that. That it accomplishes nothing. It just makes everything worse. And I have found a much happier solution is to just be nice to people. There's plenty of other ornery folks online without me adding to it, and especially in this political environment that exists today. I don't want any part of it, not me. And hopefully I can finish the course that way, I hope.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm kind of becoming similar, disengaging from these more toxic places and just being with people that I want to be with and not worrying about all the rest. Here's what I want to do, Mr. Holbert. I'm going to wrap this episode up now.
Okay.
I'm sad that I didn't think to do this, but I think people need to get to know you first. What I'd like to do is to have you back in early 2022. If you'll come back, absolutely. I will make a thread at that time for people on Patreon, and then we can start asking you specifics. Like people might have very specific questions for you. So this is kind of a getting to know you thing. And then I think we'll now allow people to pick your brain. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, I would love that. This has been just such an honor, and I've always been a huge fan, and for many, many years. And
thank you.
I'm just thrilled when you followed me on Twitter and in Instagram. It just thrilled me. So you've made my day. I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Well, William Holbert, it's very good to speak with you. It's an honor to know you, and we'll have you back soon. And I hope everyone out there enjoyed your stories. Remember, listen to this and then keep it in mind. I'll put up a thread in the coming weeks. We'll do it again.
Merry Christmas, Colin. You and your family and your little dog, Rush. And I think you got another new dog too, didn't you?
Yep, Treble as well. Yes.
Him too.
Thank you very much. And Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you out there. So thank you again for your love, kindness, and support. Thank you again, William.
Okay.
Talk to you guys soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.